Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed many weaknesses in the global food production and shipping systems. Countries around the world were forced to seriously reconsider their efforts to boost their own food security. The government here in St. Kitts and Nevis planned to do so by strengthening crop output, reducing wastage, and diversifying production. We'll dig deeper into these matters during our discussion with Miguel Fleming, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives, as well as Agricultural Officer Shaira Flanders. Ms. Flanders is responsible for the communication unit within the Ministry of Agriculture. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business. And welcome back to InFocus. First, let me apologize for the late start of today's program. Well, as mentioned, we are joined by officials from the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Fleming, who is the PS, and Shaira Flanders, an agricultural officer who's responsible for communications. First off, Mr. Fleming, can you explain to us what exactly your role is as Permanent Secretary? Right.
So my role is to work with the different directors that falls under the purview of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives. As some may be aware that recently cooperatives, they are now back under the Ministry of Agriculture, and I think that is a really good thing because a lot of the work that they do, relates to what we do. And I think that, we can work together, to ensure that we execute, the plans of the cooperatives department, and so that is my goal, that is my role, and usually we develop a strategic plan. So currently we have one from 2022 to 2031, so that is the focus of my role mainly, right, to ensure that we execute, what is in the plan for the development of agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Ms. Flanders, before I get to you, 2022 to 2031, that's a 10-year plan. Normally, strategic plans are like 5 years.
Yes. Yes, it's a 10-year plan, but I think it captures a lot of what we need to do, and I think it is perfect. It's perfect.
We can speak a bit more about that later.
Sure.
Ms. Flanders, tell us what it is your responsibilities within the ministry.
My role, my title and my role, it pretty much explains itself. My role as the head of the Media and Communication Unit is to create the targeted communications as well as the promotion of the initiatives and or events of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives. So it's a combination of ensuring that what it is that we are doing is promoted and the public is very much informed. And at the same time, trying to ensure that we stay up to date with what it is the farmers and all of the agricultural stakeholders are looking for from us as a ministry.
Okay, Mr. Flanders, let's talk a bit now about diversifying food production and how the government is working to...
Mr. Fleming, that is...
I'm sorry, Mr. Fleming, yes.
It's a lovely last name, but I like to keep it.
So, Mr. Fleming, let's talk a bit about what you mentioned in terms of the production plan. What would you say is the key, maybe the top 3 key strategies to achieve the strategic plan that is outlined?
Right, so definitely we have to work on the development of our human resource in terms of training the farmers as well. And one of the things that we recognize is that we have to work with young people and women as well to ensure that we get to execute that plan. Because what we found is that women, you know, they stick to the task, right? Men sometimes gives up easily if it does not work, and they just decide to change. But women, they will continue to try until they become expert in the area. And I think, as some might have seen with some of the videos that Shahira posted with, you know, some of the women, the female farmers, they have been in it for years, you know, and they have not given up. So women and youth is definitely something that we have to do. When I travel around the world and I see the movers and the shakers in agriculture, they are women and youth. Sometimes persons who actually don't have any experience at all whatsoever in agriculture, but the business mindset. So we have to re-educate our farmers and persons coming into agriculture to work with us to execute our strategic plan.
So that's the main issue, you'd say, women and youth getting involved. Anything else you care to highlight?
Yes, and you know, I can say that, you know, we have government support, and that is also very important to ensure that, you know, because funding is everything, right? A lot of what we need for agriculture, honestly speaking, if I had my way, I think that agriculture would have been transformed in a very quick time, you know, because you know exactly where you want to take agriculture, right, with the team that you have, but the funding is not always available to do everything. But we have, you know, sat down and discussed creative ways to get there, because it is not only agriculture that the government is responsible for, but health and education and all these other ministries. So we have decided, instead to sit around and complain, right, to, you know, to strategize and find ways and work with other institutions and non-profit organizations around the world, right, to get funding for agriculture to execute our strategic plan.
Right. And my follow-up question would be, and Ms. Landers, of course, you can jump in if you, you know, you have a contribution to make.
I was actually going to say, Ian, before you move on, another thing that you can add there as well is the fact that we would like to ensure that we are approaching agriculture sustainably. Obviously, we live in the tropics, and that means that weather conditions can affect the way that we farm and fish. It affects the production, and so ensuring that our farmers are not only trained, but all of our agricultural stakeholders learn sustainable practices as well is important.
Right, and speaking of sustainable practices, it actually led to my next question, in the sense where at a press conference with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Samal Duggins, indicated that 60% of food, of crops, I should say, after they are ripe and they're ready to harvest, that 60% is lost before they can be consumed by persons, obviously. What can you tell us about that? Can you delve a bit more into that situation? Why this is so?
Right. There's a section in agriculture that we call post-harvest practices. And I think there's a need to train farmers in post-harvest practice. So how you handle the food from the time you harvest it to the time you deliver to the marketing unit or the buyers, Rams, Best Buy, so be it, right? Because sometimes when you might just pick it and throw it in the box and you think it's all good because it's green, right? But then when it starts to ripen, then you start to see all the freckles and the, you know, the softness and all those things happening. So post-harvest, you know, handling is something that we need to really look at. And processing as well, because sometimes we overproduce, but the market is not readily available. And there's a need to organize agriculture, right? You know, I spent 6 years in Taiwan, and I've seen what they have done. And I can say that, you know, they're probably one of the best in the world as it relates to agriculture. But I don't think we are far off in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think what we need to do is just to organize agriculture. And I think once we get that done, we'll see some huge improvements and we'll be much closer to food security.
Right, of course, with the guidance of the strategic plan.
Definitely.
Yes.
And an important part of that is going to be tackled via the agricultural training school. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, I was pretty much excited learning before, of course, the public knew. One of the things that the minister highlighted was the fact that the agricultural training school is something that the government would like to focus on. And as the PS mentioned earlier, that is extremely important because our farmers and our agricultural stakeholders should be able to learn the new techniques, to learn our sustainable practices, any method that would help to increase production and to bolster food security. I think we would be able to achieve if we are going to begin the establishment of the training.
And so how essentially will that operate?
Yes, so once we have the training school, persons who are interested in getting into agriculture, and likewise what we're planning to do in terms of restructuring how we distribute land is to ensure that persons are trained before land can be approved for distribution, right? And what I observed when I got back from my studies is that we ignore the science, right? So we'll be able to now bring the science directly to the farmers, right? Sit down with them and show them certain things so they can get a better understanding. Farmers know how to produce, but they don't understand why things happen. And I believe once we're able to show them why things happen, we'll have, a new set of farmers, who are basically look more skilled and looking, combining what they know in terms of producing and the why, right, to get better results, better outputs.
And how do you think that this will impact aspiring farmers in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Yes, I think farmers in St. Kitts and Nevis should be millionaires, because when you look at the import bill, right, it is quite high, and if we can, translate that, right, into what we have locally, I think, that would inspire persons to come into agriculture. The training, once persons see that, hey, I can go to this training school and spend 6 months or 3 months, however the timeline might be, I can now go and start my own business, right, become entrepreneurs. I think that would definitely have a great impact. And also persons don't always have to now depend on the government to be employed, right? They can start their own businesses, you have your own greenhouse, right, and then you can hire 2 or 3 persons to help you work in the greenhouse. So I think that will definitely have some impact.
And Ms. Flanders, of course, the ministry has been engaged in upgrading facilities around the island that are involved in agriculture. We could think of public markets, of course, that is one thing. Can you tell us a bit about that strategy?
Yes, and I really don't want to leave out the fisheries complexes as well, because the Old Road Fisheries Complex, as well as the Bastia Fisheries Complex that's over there at the Newtown area, is industrial site, yes, on Pond Road, for those persons who don't know, close to the Bayfront. They were also in the process of receiving a facelift, I should say. Not the complete overhaul, because of course the equipment was there, but just the improvement of the facilities to ensure that production improves and it increases, not just for the persons who are working there, but also for the general public, and the fishers who purchase. The buying and selling of fish continues as well. Yes, so I think it's a process that is ongoing, because we just released an article maybe about a week or 2 weeks ago about the roof repair that was taking place right here at the Department of Agriculture, and that was to upgrade the storage facility, that is where feed is stored, and of course that will allow for the expansion of the feed in that area. And so the more feed that we're able to store is the more feed that would be available for our livestock farmers to purchase, and in a very efficient way. So all of these things are going to help with the increased production and the smooth operation that is in agriculture.
And so the public markets are being upgraded, the fisheries complexes are being upgraded. Are vendors taking advantage of the space that is being made available for them to sell their produce or their catch?
Maybe not enough, but the peers might be the best one to answer this question.
I'll say no, but we also have to look at the fact that, there's literally no parking at the Bastia public market. Yes. But we have started to look at ways in which we can increase traffic to the public market. I believe once vendors know for sure that once they go in the public market, they'll be able to get their produce sold, they'll be willing to stay in the market and come back to the market. So currently that is not happening, but we have started a discussion looking at allowing persons to actually drive into the market. You pull off for a few minutes, buy your produce, and then you can leave. And we're also looking at, on our website, by giving persons the opportunity to now order their produce and just drive across by the public market and pick up your produce. And we also want to reach out to a number of organizations who have, a large workforce, and we come together and have a calendar from now until the end of the year where we'll go together as a group to support the local market, right? So there are a number of things that we're working on, because in order for persons to buy local, they must be able to come to the market to buy local, right? Because a lot of the produce are still sold at the supermarkets. A lot of shoppers purchase at the supermarket, but we want to get them to the vendors so they can buy local.
Right. And in terms of the drive-through, that certainly is very innovative. I'm not sure how many vehicles that will be able to accommodate it, but that is something that I'm sure that the ministry is working on. But also...
Yes, which is why it's still up for discussion,
right,
because we want to make sure that our stakeholders, as we may be even having discussions with traffic department,
correct,
will also help to cement that.
And the pickup option, that is something that we would have seen during COVID-19. You know, many persons, as you speak about innovating to accommodate the new reality, they would have had a lot of curbside pickup, right? So any
convenience.
idea? Yes, of course. Any idea when the ordering system may be in place? Is it maybe later this year or?
No, hopefully before the end of May. Before the end of May, because we were contacted recently by the IT department, so we can get our website back up and running. So once that is done, we'll be able to start that shortly.
Yeah, so hopefully, I'm really hoping that we would be able to, at least the second quarter, so that we could get this show on the road.
Definitely.
Yes.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
I know.
Can you tell us a bit about the relationship between the ministry and vendors? Because we appreciate, of course, that not all farmers are vendors.
Right. I'll say we have a good relationship. I mean, everyone don't totally agree with the decisions that we make, but a lot of times it's in the best interest, right? I remember when we decided that we want to do night market every month. You know, some persons were not for it. But, you know, after seeing the support that they get at these night markets, because they felt like it would fall off, right? Well, they said, let us give it a try. And I think we're off to a good start. And the vendors are happy. Every time I go in the public market, they're asking when we're going to have the next night market. And I visit frequently, you know, on Saturdays to see, you know, how things are happening and interact with the vendors to see what, you know, how can we improve, you know, the service and the public market. And that is why this year we're going to see some major innovations happening at the Basel Public Market.
Mr. Fleming, Ms. Flanders, stay right there. We'll be right back after these quick messages. Viewers, stay with us. And we're back with more In Focus. Welcome back. We'll continue our conversation with the Permanent Secretary responsible for Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives, Miguel Fleming, and also Shira Flanders, the Agricultural Officer responsible for Communication. Now, of course, Open Day, Agriculture Open Day is coming up, and that is something that is very popular in St. Kitts and Nevis, with persons that farm, persons that fish, persons that do agro-processing, and we want to talk a bit more about that because it has a new location this year.
Yes.
But first, to get this new location, MOU had to be signed between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Environment. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, of course, I'm going to allow the PS to go right ahead and start.
Right, so that area is a protected area, right? And it's controlled by the Ministry of Environment, and they just wanted to ensure that, you know, that there are certain rules and regulations that governs, you know, what can and cannot be done in that area. And so we just wanted to sign the MOU to cement that, you know, we're on the same page. And we have a farm right next door. And we are quite aware of what can and cannot be done and should not be done, right? So we did that just to, you know, ensure that we have a common understanding. And I think that site is perfect for open day. We have, you know, more space for parking, unlimited parking space, and it's a bigger and better venue, so we're going to have a bigger and better open day this year. But I'll let Shahira Flanders speak a bit more in terms of...
He knows this is my thing.
That's her area.
I absolutely love the Agriculture Open Day. Just like any of the events that, you know, are hosted by the Ministry of Agriculture, but this one is the biggest, and it is our annual event. But the Agriculture Open Day is going to be held on the 27th and the 28th of April. That is Thursday the 27th and Friday the 28th of April 2023. And so the clock is winding down. We're about maybe, 2 weeks away? I wouldn't even say 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. But the excitement is going, and I'm really looking forward to the hosting of this event, especially since we have our new location. Preparations are already on the way at the site. The last visit that we went on, we were able to register the actual livestock, the petting zoo area that is currently under construction. The fencing is already in place. So just a few, things that we have to touch up here and there, but most definitely we are preparing ourselves well on our way for the hosting of this major event. Now, the Agricultural Open Day gives not only the farmers and the fishers the opportunity to showcase what it is that they offer on a general basis, but the opportunity as well for the staff at the Departments of Agriculture, at the Department of Marine Resources, as well as the cooperatives, the opportunity to share with the public and the many students who enjoy the open day more than the adults, of course. Yes, the opportunity to learn more about the careers in agriculture, the various roles of the different departments, and that sort of thing. So it allows us to share, and it also allows the farmers, the vendors, and all of the agricultural stakeholders, businesses as well, to showcase as well. We'll be partnering with a few businesses as well who, of course, want to be on board, because, it gives them the opportunity to market as well. It's a major event. But yes, definitely looking forward to it.
Any new innovations this year, given that you have the extra space to use?
Well, my permanent secretary here has a lot of ideas.
Yes, this year definitely. I think last year I've been to Open Day. I did not see anything related to hydroponics. It's something that is very popular. So we'll have definitely be displaying hydroponics there. You're going to see 3 different production styles of hydroponics. We're going to show the battery cage system as it relates to doing layers, your eggs, So we're going to have that as well. We're going to show something with tunnel farming. So if you have something in your backyard and all those type of things, we're definitely going to be displaying how we control the monkey. Some of the things that we do to control the monkey. And so we have some stuff, and as it relates to the marine section, we're going to be bringing out some very expensive toys, right? The underwater habitat monitoring cameras, yes, which were donated by the Japanese. So we'll have a lot to display, and I'll save some of the secrets for when you get there.
Because I don't want him to give away all of the information, because I want them to come to the open day to ensure that they grasp all that is happening. So no more secrets giving away there. Yes.
So luckily, I'll just share one last secret.
Yeah, sure.
Rice. Definitely we'll have rice on display, because I think most people eat rice, but they don't know how it is grown. So we'll be showing that as well.
Okay. Yes. The show, the open day is 2 days this year. Why the change?
No, the open day is usually a 2-day event.
A 2-day event?
Yes, it's usually a 2-day event. You can't have it all on the Thursday. So we extend the open day from the Thursday to the Friday. But it's been happening on an annual basis for the 2 days. So we're not going to change the 2 days this year. What I will add, though, is this year the admission fee for adults is $5. Yes, but for children who are wearing uniform, the admission is free. So there are no excuses for all of the schools. When the children come in their school uniforms, it is absolutely free. However, we know the children like to go home and come back and dolls up. So when they go home and they come back and they're wearing their own clothes, the fee is $3.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And mention earlier was made of the storage shipment shed that was upgraded. What is that shed essentially used for? And why was it important to upgrade it?
Yeah, over the years, I started working at the Department of Agriculture in 2018, and I've been hearing complaints about feed availability for a long time. And I decided, once I get there, that would be one of the first things that is addressed. And we start to address that, where once we repaired the roof and expanded the storage space, we would have been able to ensure that farmers, don't come to the Department of Agriculture and not able to purchase feed, right? And that was one of the things. We needed more space so we can have more feeds on the ground at any given point in time. So that was important for us. So we sell feed from that space, right? And we also sell a lot of other agricultural inputs, veterinary supplies. And so, I mean, there have been times when the supplies were not available, inconsistency in supply, and we wanted to ensure that we're not telling farmers that you should always have produce, you should be consistent, but we at the department as well, gatekeepers are not consistent in terms of what is available. So we thought that was important for us, and we sought to address these issues.
And in addressing issues, of course, there also was a shortage at various times of chemicals that's important for the agricultural process. What can you share there?
Yeah, so we inherited a problem. I'm not even casting blame. We inherited a problem, but we have started to resolve that. I think almost every single input that the farmers purchase at the Department of Agriculture is available. And never in the history the Department of Agriculture brought in containers of supplies, right, especially as it relates to pesticides. So we have done that, especially the weedless that farmers so care about, that we brought in an entire container of that chemical. And, you know, truth be told, you know, we usually buy our supplies from Trinidad and Tobago. But because we were not able to source it in Trinidad, we had to go to Jamaica and had to manufacture the product for us. So that was the delay. But I can assure the farmers that moving forward, everything that they usually buy at the Department of Agriculture would be available.
Was that at an additional cost to have it manufactured in Jamaica?
No. No,
okay.
It was not.
All right. Well, certainly good news for our farmers.
Yes.
All right.
Kill two birds with one stone as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. And also, can you tell us a bit about how farmers essentially, after these things are brought in, how do they go about in accessing the supplies from the department?
Yes, so they come to the Department of Agriculture, they go to administration where the cashiers are, and they just purchase their supplies. We usually have a list with all the items posted on the board, and they can, you know, look at what they want to purchase to see if it's available.
Yes, and for the sake of convenience, if you are wondering if the inputs, the chemicals, the feed is available, it's just a real easy 467-1841 call away. And you can always ask to find out if this is available at the moment, and then you head to the department and of course you purchase the items, the agricultural inputs that you need. The storage facility, the upgrades actually allows for a more efficient process of getting the items, and so that's one of the things as well. It's making shopping easier for the farmer. So they're getting their products in a more efficient way, as opposed to what was I don't want to say a junky, congested way before, but that's almost what it was before. So now it's an open space where you come in, you check for your items, you go and you ask about it if you have to, and there are lots of agricultural officers who are on the ground too. They provide advice, yes, and they speak to the farmers as well as any of the backyard gardeners, or any of our planters, I should say, who, you know, may be seeking information about the products that they're seeking to purchase.
We're going to take another quick break, but Mr. Fleming, you spoke about monkeys, and certainly we'll have to have a discussion about monkeys and other wild animals. So we encourage both of you to stay right with us. We'll be right back with more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
And welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussions with officials from the Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Fleming, of course, is the Permanent Secretary, and Ms. Flanders is the Agricultural Officer with responsibility for the Communications Unit. Mr. Fleming, as we spoke about monkeys and other wild animals, of course, now a recent announcement was made in terms of a new initiative to help to control the population of monkeys here in St. Kitts and Nevis and others that would be impacting crops. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, as it relates to the monkeys, you know, it's a real issue, and it pains me to see, you know, a farmer can just lose everything in such a short time from monkey damage. But there are a number of things that we're doing. We're doing mass trapping. So before the end of 2023, we'll have about 400 to 500 shops constructed where we distribute to farmers, because, you know, it's the monkeys, as long as they can eat all the food, they'll just cause some serious damage, and sometimes they just bite it and throw it down. So if we look at, you know, the kind of damage that is done by the monkeys, if we can really control the monkeys or get the population down, we can see a serious increase, and the St. Kitts and Nevis is getting closer to food security. So we're doing a number of things. We also have the solar fencing, where it delivers a small jolt to the monkeys when they touch the fence trying to climb over. So we have that as well. We're looking at spike fencing, where we add spikes at the top of the fence. So when again, it makes it difficult for them to climb over to get into the farm. So there are a number of things that we're working on, a combination of methods. And wild pigs, it's a serious problem as well for farmers. They really cause a lot of damage. Very difficult to control, so we're looking at a number of methods, including trapping and pheromone, because they come out like during the night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, different times. It's very difficult to track them. So what we do sometimes, we camp out on farms. I've been there as well to actually experience and see what's happening, to see where we can make improvements. So sometimes I'm literally out there 3 in the morning, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., you know, with the, you know, the trappers to see what's happening and to see how we can improve.
And that helps to inform the type of decisions that are made from government at the higher level in terms of ensuring that farmers, and it's not just persons who farm commercially, but of course backyard farmers as well too.
Definitely.
Yes, because what persons don't realize, it's not just the farmers. It's not just the farmers. The monkeys are actually threatening food security on a national level, which means that our backyard gardeners as well as households are also experiencing the loss, because the monkeys are coming further down into civilization, which poses an extreme threat to the food that we are producing. So it's really important that we continue to have these discussions, these conversations, to see what best practices we can use to control the monkey problem.
And certainly there's a lot more that we can talk about, and we certainly would love to have you back at another time so that we can continue the discussion. But in the meantime, we'll have to wrap it up here and say thank you, Mr. Fleming, and also Ms. Flanders, for being with us for InFocus.
It's a pleasure.
It's an extended edition today, and we'll be joined next by the Permanent Secretary responsible for Foreign Affairs, Kay Bass. Ms. Bass will be talking to us about Diplomatic Week, which is upcoming here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Stay with us. Welcome back to InFocus. I'm Ian Richards, and as mentioned, we were joined by Ms. Kay Bass, who is the Permanent Secretary responsible for Foreign Affairs. Ms. Bass, welcome to InFocus.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Richards. Good to be here.
So Diplomatic Week is upcoming now. If memory serves me correct, it started back in 2007.
Yes, correct.
Right. Tell us a bit about why Diplomatic Week was started.
Diplomatic Week was started because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for managing international relationships with countries all over the world. And so it was started because, you know, we can't attend every meeting and not everyone could reach us. So it was important for us to bring our ambassadors with countries with whom we have diplomatic relations to St. Kitts and Nevis so that they can meet our high-level officials, interact with the public, as well as see what the country is like.
And this is the first Diplomatic Week since, I think, 2019?
Yes.
That would have been before,
Correct.
But, you know, COVID-19 would have
yes.
upset a lot of stuff. So what are you looking forward to? What can persons expect this year for 2023?
Well, 2023 is very exciting. We are very elated to be able to host it. We are expecting that in addition to our own ambassadors who will be coming home, we will have other countries visiting. We have about 42 countries that will be represented here at Diplomatic Week in 2023. And a special feature this year, Mr. Richards, is that we'll be having something called Diplomatic Boulevard. In the past, when ambassadors came to St. Kitts and Nevis for Diplomatic Week, they will meet generally, practically only with high-level officials, the Governor General, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, and other ministers, and also the private sector. But this year we introduced what we call the Diplomatic Boulevard, and this will facilitate greetings of the ambassadors with the public. The public will be able to interact with the general public, and we were initially planning to have it on Central Street, but when we heard of Open Day and where it's going to be located, we partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we hope to move that Diplomatic Boulevard from Central Street to the Open Day. So they will be able to see what happens during Agriculture Open Day. They will be able to meet the public, and they'll be able to see what we produce in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Diplomatic Boulevard, it certainly sounds very interesting. So essentially, what does the ministry hope to get out of that, out of Diplomatic Boulevard? Of course, we know that the Diplomatic Week itself has a broad objectives, and we'll get into that a bit. But as you spoke about the Boulevard, it's something that I want to touch on a bit more.
Yes. What happens? Now, if you ask anybody in St. Kitts, any lay person, what do you understand by the Sustainable Development Goals? Give me what is one of the Sustainable Development Goals that you're familiar with? They'll say, okay, education, health, reducing poverty. You will never hear them say strengthening partnerships. And a lot of people ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what does Foreign Affairs do? Well, we believe that the layman, while interacting with the ambassadors who come to St. Kitts and Nevis for Diplomatic Week, will be able to understand what they do. Now, while I was sitting there and waiting, and I was listening to the Permanent Secretary of Agriculture, he mentioned that they had to get some stuff from Trinidad, some stuff from Jamaica, Japan is helping them with some underwater something. And if we look around St. Kitts and Nevis, you see a lot of things that were donated to us, or that we partnered with another country. We think of the fisheries complex from Japan. When I attended the junior high school, which is now the Washington Archibald High School, the school was built by Canadians, well, you know, Canadian assistants. So Foreign Affairs helps the country to advance in its development through partnerships with other countries.
And you mentioned that 42 countries will be represented here during Diplomatic Week.
Yes.
Where does that rank in terms of attendance throughout the years?
This is pretty much the same, yes. We have 42 countries represented, but of the ambassadors who will come from other countries, we have about 20, and we have honorary consuls who represent St. Kitts in other countries, as well as resident honorary consuls and resident ambassadors. So the total number of countries represented will be 42.
You just made reference to the discussion that we had with officials from the Ministry of Agriculture earlier.
Yes.
And of course, sustainability is a word that the government is always honing in on in terms of its activities and its programs and initiatives that take place. And I understand that that also filters into Diplomatic Week.
Yes, our theme is driving change, advancing a vision for a sustainable island state. We hope that during the opening ceremony, which will take place on Tuesday, the 25th at the Marriott Ballroom, that the Honorable Prime Minister will address the gathering, and he will speak about his vision for a sustainable island state. And we also have the Foreign Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, who will also be talking about what the ministry is doing with respect to sustainable development.
So can you give us a sense in terms of what went into developing the theme?
Yes, so I must commend my staff here locally at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as our ambassadors overseas and their staff, because it was a collaborative effort. A theme was presented, it was discussed, it has gone through many iterations, but finally what we have is input from everybody.
And give us a sense of how long Diplomatic Week will run for this year.
It will run from the 23rd, April 23rd to April 28th here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
And as you mentioned, it will be at the Marriott Ballroom.
Well, only one activity, actually, the only one day will be at the Marriott Ballroom. On Monday, we have our own ambassadors who are stationed all over the world in the jurisdictions overseas. They will be visiting the Nevis Sixth Form, as well as the Clarence Fitzgerald Bryant College. And I must say, when they go to Nevis, they will also be engaging with the Charlestown Secondary School, as well as students from the Gingerland. So our own ambassadors will be interacting with students. We have ambassadors who will be presenting their credentials as well on Monday to the Governor General and some to the Honorable Prime Minister. And Tuesday, we will be at the Marriott for the opening ceremony, of course. And on Wednesday, they will be going to Nevis. Thursday is the Diplomatic Boulevard, as well as a tour of St. Kitts. And when they go to Nevis on Wednesday, they will also have a tour in Nevis. And then on Friday, we have a staff retreat. This will include our local staff, as well as our ambassadors who will be coming from overseas and our honorary consuls. And we will be looking at our foreign policy, how to develop the strategy, a foreign policy strategy. So when the week ends, we will have a document, a manual, so to speak, as to how we can implement the foreign policy and fulfill our mandate.
The engagement with the public, what is hoped to come out of that in terms of looking forward to developing persons to get a better understanding of foreign affairs, as you mentioned, but also possibly maybe motivating persons to join the diplomatic field?
Correct. So they will have, the general public will have access to the ambassadors, so they can ask them many questions. And we suspect that there will be students who will ask, what do I need to do in order to become an ambassador? What subjects may I need to study? What educational track would I need to follow in order to become an ambassador? So we hope that the engagement with the public will not only heighten awareness about what foreign affairs does, but it will also motivate and encourage younger persons to pursue this career.
And of course, that is a part of sustainability.
Correct.
Ms.
Yes.
Bass, thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you for having me. Thank you so very much.
And thank you to all listeners and viewers for being with us for another edition of InFocus. We encourage you to join us next week at the same time, at the same place, for another edition. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.